Welcome to the podcast, Hank Edwards and Deanna Wadsworth.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for hosting us.
You guys have written a book together, which is super cool. On April 30th, which is the day after this comes out, you're releasing the first book in the Lacetown Murder Mysteries called Murder Most Lovely. Tell us about this new series. What is the scoop?
Who wants to go first?
You go first.
Okay, I'll go first.
Yes.
So, like a year ago, I went out to dinner with my husband, had some cocktails, and at like 11 o'clock at night, after having like wonderful conversations in my brain with myself, because I think I'm clever, I messaged Hank and I said, dude, we need to write a book together. And he's like, we should. And then we did.
I might have had some cocktails that night too. I can't remember.
He may have. It was yeah, we should kind of moment.
Yeah.
And we didn't really know where it was going.
We had no plans.
What's that?
We had no idea, like nothing. That was just the start of it. It was like, we should do a book. We didn't have an idea or anything.
It was a completely inane, dude, we should write a book together kind of moment. And then seriously, the next day we had some conversations like, what should it be? Superhero. And then we just kind of like spitted ideas back and forth. And Hank was like, we would write the fuck out of a rom-com. Am I allowed to say fuck?
Yes, you are. We'll put the little explicit logo on the episode and you can cuss as much as you want.
So he was like, we would write the fuck out of a rom-com. And I'm like, we would. And then we're like, what should it be? And we just spitballed ideas back and forth. Like, I mean, literally, like there was probably like 30 or 40 things we shot back and forth at each other. And then Hank picked on two of them and he's like, I love the idea of a mortician and a hairdresser.
Yeah.
Then we ran with it.
Yep, and we just ran with it. And it just started writing. I mean, we didn't plan, like, you take one chapter. Well, what we did was, each of us wrote up a character bio and sent it to each other. And so I wrote up. You what?
It was so great, like blind dates for our characters.
It was really fun. So you had Michael, right? And I had Jazz.
Yeah, you made Jazz. So tell us about Jazz.
So Jazz is very sassy and very snarky, and he's a talented hairstylist, and he's uprooted his life after separating from his husband, who is a best-selling novelist and mystery novelist. And so he's moved to this small town on the coast of Lake Michigan in Michigan. And some Michigan love there, Jeff. Yes.
Love that.
Yes, always. And so he's starting over, and he's just trying to kind of like rebuild. And he's works at a fun little salon, but he's he's 49, but he tells people he's 41. And
he's 35, remember?
He tries that too.
He totally lies about his age.
It changes a little bit, so we find out later. Our editor actually called us out. She was like, is this right? Because he shouldn't have been around that time. Like, Jazz lies about his age.
He's almost 50, but he says he's 35.
Right. So that's how that started. And then she wrote up Michael.
Yeah, Hank created Jazz, the hairdresser, which is funny because I actually legitimately am a hairdresser in real life. But when we were talking, Hank had said, I've always wanted to write a hairdresser. I'm like, you take the hairdresser, run with it. And then I took the mortician, which sounded really great and exciting. And after dozens of Google search, Google decided that I obviously want to be a coroner and mortician, and they send me casket ads, but whatever. And, so I created it was fun because Hank created Jazz, this sassy, almost 50 hairdresser who's super sarcastic. He's got long honey blonde hair and super stylish and wears eyeliner, and he's really sassy, and he has a big potty mouth. And then, he does. And then I didn't know who Hank was creating when we came upon this conversation. It was very much hey, you pick your guy, I'll pick my guy. We'll see what happens. And I made Michael Fleischman, who is a 42-year-old, very uptight, very socially awkward Jewish guy who runs the local funeral home, and he's also county coroner to our fake county. Is it Harbor County?
Harbor County, yeah.
Harbor County on Lake Michigan, which is sort of like in somewhere between, I don't know,
like Saugatuck and
is it Clinton Junction?
Yeah, Muskegon. Yeah,
Muskegon, somewhere a fake county in between there, and he's the county coroner. He's very uptight and super horny, and super has this like hilarious, like sexual imagination, but he's really reserved, and he is obsessed with mystery novels, and he goes to a bookstore in Lacetown, which is our fictional town on Lake Michigan, during a literary festival to meet his favorite author, Russell Whittingham, which happens to be Jazz's husband. They're separated, but they're not divorced yet.
And that's cute. I know, right?
Totally rom-com meet and greet during the rain under an umbrella, cutesy.
Waiting in line.
Until Jazz gets his little. I mean, he really worries Michael thinks he's a bitchy queen, and he kind of is. He's totally bitchy queen.
He's really fun to write.
He's so fun.
So when you got these characters who are obviously really opposite to each other, you could just hear it in the bios. Yeah. What was it like to mash them together?
Oh man,
sparks had to have flown off the pages.
Oh yes, right away. It was really fun. The first chapters, they're meet cute, and we had, we came. I mean, we do a lot of like editing, right? So we'll write the first pass and we'll talk about we message a lot during the day and stuff like that. Talk about where we want to go with things, and then we use Google Docs to write together. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun to just see the whole creation of it and like set up that setting and understand how they were going to meet and how that was going to go and how Michael would be so taken with Jazz at first sight. It was really fun.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, he's so handsome. Why is he talking to me?
That's really fun.
And of course, you've got the mystery element in this too. So rom-com mystery, which I'm trying to think. I haven't necessarily seen that kind of combo a lot because there's straight up romantic suspense, of course, and then there's like cozy mystery, and maybe this ekes a little towards that with the rom-cominess. But did you know that this was going to be like something to go for, or did you just like mash these two elements together and say this thing?
We thought about doing like a film noir concept, like a 1940s film. But see, that's the thing. Like when Hank and I started writing, we didn't have a direction. We were very much open to anything. And it was sort of like he created Jazz. I created Michael. We knew we wanted a murder. We knew we wanted it to be on Lake Michigan.
Yes, we wanted a murder.
No,
the murder got pretty gruesome too. I was really shocked.
Yeah, we wanted some things, but then as we began to write it began to have elements of a real murder. Yeah. So like our sheriff is blustering and funny, and Michael has his kitty cat, the little Mr. Pickle.
Mr. Pickle.
Mr. Pickle, that black and white kitty, which my dog is growling at right now.
We should note, for the people who may not be watching the video, Deanna just held up this stuffed kitty, and you're going to be giving these away at GRL in a few months.
Yes, we have a couple of kitties. So, like, when we created the story, I guess maybe other people with their writing collaborations might be different than we were, but Hank and I were not, in a competition with each other. We were not like, we just knew we were going to have fun because we like each other and we know each other personally. And we were just like, let's have fun with this. And there was no like obsessive competition with like, I don't like this storyline or I like this. It was just sort of like, what do you want to do? Yeah. Okay, that sounds fun. And we both ran with it. Yeah. And we ended up developing this city on Lake Michigan and this little town and these little side characters.
Let's talk about the mystery side of it. What is, who's dead?
Yeah. The mystery side of it. That's right. So I'll talk and then I'll let Hank talk because I've been blabbering too long. So we decided we wanted it to be like film noir idea. And then it became like a legitimate murder mystery where there's a dead body and it's gruesome and it's creepy and it's sad. And there's like some crazy shit happening. And there's like cops that need to come in and there's like a real mystery. And there's actually a couple side mysteries that are happening over the book arc of the next 2 novels. Novel 2 of which we will be submitting in the morning. We would have submitted it today, but I'm being a typo psycho. So
yeah.
I am. I'm a typo psycho.
She's finding a lot of good stuff though. I like the changes.
You know.
So the murder actually got more gruesome than I was anticipating. We were like, let's go. Do we want to go? Yeah, let's do it. So it's, do we want to say who it is? I mean, it happens early on, so I don't think it's a spoiler, right?
Oh, I don't know. Why don't we just talk about how creepy the murder is?
Okay, we'll just leave it at that. Someone's murdered, and maybe their hands are missing.
Or chopped off.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that's kind of...
That's more gruesome than I expect in a rom-com.
I know.
I'll say that.
Wait till you hear about the serial killer.
Oh.
Wait, that was a spoiler. I didn't say it.
So, but in the first book...
Is that a spoiler that we're leaving in or a spoiler that we're taking out?
We're leaving it in, but we're not going to respond about it.
Fair enough.
That's right.
A little breaking news there for the podcast that we will not do follow-up questions on. You were saying, Hank, on this murder.
So it was gruesome, and then there's a discovery. But Michael is kind of, you can't help but be a little excited about it because it's his first murder because he's a small town county coroner, and the only
the mortician. He's the county coroner, too.
Right. So it's up to him now to like investigate. He's never had a murder like this. He's had a murder, but they knew the victim and the attacker. So this is completely new for him, and he reads murder mystery novels, so he's really excited about it. So he's like starting to play like detective, and then the sheriff is kind of like all blustering and yelling at him, like Fleshman, Dilworth. That's Jazz's last name, Jazz Dilworth, and he like calls everybody their last name and yells at them, and they're always a suspect. So don't leave town.
Everyone's a suspect. Musgrave says they're not suspect.
Don't leave town. Yeah. Sheriff Musgrave.
So if I understood correctly, you kind of just created this on the fly.
Yep.
For both the romance and the mystery.
Totally.
How did that play out in like the day-to-day writing? Because I can't even like imagine having co-written something that there wasn't more of a plan to it.
It was actually went smoother than I expected.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun because we chatted a lot on Facebook Messenger and we'd text and we'd call each other now and then. We'd have conversations, phone conversations, and we'd plan out where we wanted things to go. And then one of us would say, "Okay, I'll do this," and then you can write that, and then we just kind of took it. And then it was really fun because like you'd go through and you'd read, how you like read through what you've written, and it's somebody else has written something new, and you're like, wow, this is like a whole new story. Like you don't know what you're reading, you don't know what to expect. So it's really fun.
So awesome because, like, first I gotta say, writing with Hank Wadsworth has been a pleasure.
Oh.
Because not only is he a great writer and like stupid funny. Like, so funny. I can't even tell you how many times he writes something and I'm just like, laughing. But he and I are not, we are not competitive individuals. We are not like jumping into this like, well, this is what I want. This is what I want. It was so easy.
Yeah.
Where it was like Hank created Jazz. Then Jazz had this profile that we went with. I created Michael, and we had this profile we went with. He and I created a exterior mystery that happened to them, but because he created such a good profile and I created such a strong profile, both of us knew who Michael and who Jazz were. And then it was like, well, Michael wouldn't do that or Jazz wouldn't say that. And we didn't like try to like undermine the other person. I don't know. I just feel really blessed.
Aww.
I love you. I just feel blessed to be able to write a story with someone who is so easy and so fun, and our sense of humor is both very similar and darkly twisted and inappropriate, and like we both knew when our editor was going to go,
Yeah.
no.
I told her several times, I was like, this is going to get cut out, and you put it in, and it's going to get cut out, and I'm telling you right now. And she's like, I want to leave it in. I'm like, okay, but it's going to get cut, and it did.
And I'm like, they're not going to use the C word. And he's like, oh, maybe they will. No, they didn't. But it was just, it was so much, I don't know. It was just one of those things that were really easy because Hank's so fun to work with.
Yeah.
It was just easy. I mean, not that writing and editing is easy, but even as we went through the process, there would be scenes. We each knew where the scene was going to go.
Yeah.
We knew what scene was going to happen next. And if it was, because our work, he's very typical 9 to 5 work schedule. Monday through Friday, and I am Wednesday through Saturday, noon to 8, those 4 days. So like he would do all the stuff Wednesday through Saturday, and then I'd open it up on Sunday, and then I do all the stuff Sunday to Tuesday. And then it wasn't like we were fixing or changing each other's work. It was like, oh, that's a great scene. And then I would add to it. And then he would take my scene and add to it. And it was just like layering and layering cool stuff with what was already funny. So it was like, I knew what I was writing on Tuesday. I wrote this whole scene. And then Hank would write the next scene. And when I would get a chance to read on Thursday, it was like, oh, what am I going to read? I know what's going to happen, but how is it going to happen? And he is so funny.
No.
So funny. And I mean, it was just so great writing together.
So, Hank, for you, what's kind of your side of that story as you're like going through and doing your parts on the book on your days?
So it was a lot of fun, like Deanna said, because I've been writing during my lunch hours at work. So like Monday through Friday, I'll have like an hour, and I usually go and I hide somewhere at the building, and I'll like be able to focus and write. And it was really fun to go through Google Docs and be able to accept all those changes, because we always do the suggestions, right? So that like the track changes, so we can see what each other has done. And it's always so much fun to see. It's like, you know, like Deanna said, it's like, oh, it's like a little present, you know, it's like, oh, there's something new. You know? And I go through and seeing how she did the layering. I was talking to my husband, Fred, and I was like, you know, it's like I'm picking up such good ideas about how to layer emotion in. Deanna is awesome at doing that, and like pulling out the emotions in a scene and like digging in deeper where it needs to be. And I've, you know, that's something that I've always kind of like, you know, I'm always like, write the action, you know.
But that's what I love about his writing, because he will write action that conveys emotion, whereas I would have written a long, drawn-out emotional monologue. And somehow the two just went so great.
Yeah, we really are a good blend together like that. So yeah, it's really fun, and she's really funny and really darkly funny. So it's been a lot of fun because, there's some stuff where I like write something dark and funny, and then you get the comment. It's always fun to get that comment like LOL, oh my god, and so then like all of a sudden, like further down the page, she's added something and I'm like, oh my god, you did not just write that. So it's really fun.
Wrong.
Yeah,
we're so wrong, we're so right, Hank.
yeah.
Well, I really like the organic method it sounds like you guys had, because like my brain can't even begin to process trying to co-write without a plan. But I've heard other people do that, and it works out great. What, as you got the draft done, what was the revision and also, I guess, making the book seem like it had one voice? What was that like? So it wasn't like two different people at work.
Can I respond to this?
Of course.
Okay, so Hank would send me a scene. Well, it was in Google Docs, so we would get scenes together. So I feel like the way it went, before anyone else read anything or we got any feedback from editors or beta readers or whatever, it was like we had our strong characters decided who they were and what the mystery was. And he would write a scene, and then I would get it, and I'd be like, oh, it's a good scene. I love where it's going. Maybe, okay, so like I'm not going to give a spoiler, but there's a scene at the end of book 1 where the murderer is caught, and our two heroes are like in this epic battle fighting them, like the murderer, right? Okay, so Hank writes that scene, and I'm like, ah! And then I go in and I add some fighting, some struggling, maybe a little dialogue. Hank comes back in and he adds a little more dialogue. He remembers that the gun is on the other side of the room. Whatever the detail is, we both keep adding layers. And I think it comes back to the point that we're both so invested in our characters, and we weren't like competing to try to be the better person. And I think that's a lot of it. I mean, I think you can't co-write a book together if you're competitive or need center of attention. And Hank and I just had so much fun, and it would be like, oh yeah, add that. And then he was like, oh my God, more great. That's great. You shot him. Oh, I didn't expect to shoot him. Let's do that. Whatever it was. And we kept adding these layers, and it became so much fun. But in the end, when we would get a scene and it was completed, we would each of us would go back and read through the whole manuscript and be like, oh, we missed that detail.
Yeah.
And Hank would send that to me, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot about that. And he would add it. Or I would, like, even today, we're actually like one day off submitting book 2. We were going to submit it today, but I am like typo crazy. So I sent the manuscript to my Kindle so I could find any misspellings and typos. And I was like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
We have a scene where Michael and Jazz are sitting in Michael's living room with the TV. And in book 1, he only has a TV in his bedroom. What are we going to do? And so like, I had a sentence, and Hank's like, that's cool. Good for catching that. And I feel like that's kind of how we've been. Like,
yeah,
we'll catch something and go, oh, I'm glad you caught that.
Yeah. But to your point, Jeff, you said like about planning and writing off the cuff. So the first book, I think, and Deanna, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but the first book was really, I mean, it wasn't easy because writing's hard, but it was easier. Book 2, it was more of a struggle, I think, with writing it.
So much more of a struggle.
Because we had a lot going on. So we have like an overarching mystery, and we have another, it's like contained mystery.
Yes.
So we've talked about it, and we're like, book 3, we really need to plan it out more. Yeah. So we're gonna, like, once we let this book 2 get out a little bit, we're gonna like start planning book 3 and really
book
like
needs a serious luncheon with some planning.
Yeah. So Absolutely.
Book 2 was book 1 was very organic and natural.
Yeah.
And book 2, I mean, you'll probably agree, Hank. I think we fell in love with our side characters
Yeah.
so much. We got distracted with all these side stories.
Yeah.
Even our editor was like, why are you talking about that and that? We're like,
Because
funny.
we like them.
So we had to cut a lot of scenes and really focus back on the romance on
Right.
book 2.
DVD extras, deleted
That's right.
scenes.
DVD extras, exactly.
But let's talk about those side characters a little bit, because there's a
Okay.
whole paragraph of the blurb for book 1 that details these side characters. Michael's sassy assistant Kitty, the grumpy sheriff Musgrave, Russell's creepy PR rep Norbert, Michael's grandfather who likes his Manhattan strong and his women saucy, and of course, who we've already met, Mr. Pickles Farrington III.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So
Same here.
did you guys split those up in the same way that you took Jazz, Hank, and Deanna took Michael, or did these get created on the fly as you needed them?
Yeah.
They were on the fly.
Yeah.
We just like,
We just knew, kind of. Yeah.
I think I came up with Mr. Pickles
Mr.
Farrington III.
Yeah.
And Hank created Sheriff Musgrave. Because I think when we were talking, Sheriff Musgrave was actually like an old man, and Hank made him this whole like Ron Perlman kind of character.
Yes, very
Like,
Ron
that
Perlman.
attitude. And Kitty, I don't know where she came from,
You
but
created Kitty.
did I? Okay, because I imagined her. Do you watch The Blue Bloods with Tom Selleck?
I have
anyways,
not.
His secretary is this voluptuous, like blonde chick, and I pictured her. And
Very
I don't know who
noir.
created. I don't know who created Grandpa.
I think we
You
both.
know Steve.
Oh yeah, Steve. Yeah, the handyman.
We both made Ezra.
Mhm. The apprentice.
I don't know anything about them. That's not a spoiler at all.
That's very impressive to just kind of create on the fly like that. Two people pantsing would make my head explode, but
It was insane. I don't know how we managed to do it, but
I bet you had
we got
fun
a
with
lot of
it.
good feedback from
All the
editor.
more.
We did have so much fun, Jeff.
Yeah.
I don't know how lucky I am.
Mm.
Like a year ago, I sent him a drunk text message that we should write a book together, and we have had the best year.
Had it even crossed your minds before the drunk text to do this in some
No.
like other random moment?
Nope.
Never really even talked about it. I mean, we see each other JRL. She comes up for Ferndale Pride because she lives about an hour and a half away from me.
I'm Northwest Ohio. He's Southwest Michigan, so we've done some Pride festivals together. But
Yeah.
in all freaking honesty, the whiskey made me do it, Jeff.
Mm.
I literally texted him, "Hey, full disclosure, I've been drinking. We should write a book together." I do believe, Hank, that was the quote.
Pretty much, yeah.
And he was like, "We would write the fuck out of a rom-com." And I was like, "We would." And then we ran with it. And then that's that. It was just like all fun.
And it's interesting that you're evolving in book 2 and probably in book 3 too, as you had the fun moment. Now you kind of have to make everything keep tying together in the next 2 books.
Yes. It's all got to come together now for the third book, yeah.
Because that's like, yeah, when you have all that tied together stuff. Because I've been reading a lot of romantic suspense lately where it's like something that arcs across
Yep.
a trilogy or whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's exciting.
Right?
Yeah, book two is tentatively called Murder Most Deserving. And it was a lot harder to write than the first book.
Yeah.
As fun though, I hope.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, just as fun, but there were moments I feel like we both checked out.
Hmm.
And we've had this conversation. We know that we checked out because we had decided on a storyline for Michael and Jazz, and then we were like, this doesn't feel right.
Mhm.
But we because it's not your book, it also belongs to someone else. You don't just say, oh, that storyline can happen because the two of you decided together, so you keep going with it. And then there's moments where we had to talk and we're like, where I was like, I don't like this. And he's like, yeah, I don't like it either. And I thought I said I didn't like it. I'm like, maybe you said you didn't like it, but I didn't hear you said you didn't like it. And I don't know why we didn't like it. And I don't even know why we're doing it. And it was like, we had to, I mean, there was a couple moments like that on this story. And there was also, like we said in the beginning, we love our side characters too much. And we gave them a lot of screen time they did not deserve, even though we love them. So we had to distract and take a lot of stuff out. Not that we wanted to take it out, but it was like, why is this scene here? Mm-hmm. No one cares.
Right.
Except us. So it was a little different. Like, we created this wonderful world, and in book 2, we kind of just went crazy with it. We went crazy with the cheese whiz. It's like, how many stories? I love Sheriff Musgrave. I love Misty. I love this person. And we just wrote all these scenes, and we're like, and part of that I will say is my fault, because I sent a lot of scenes to Hank before we even plotted the book. I was like, I got this funny scene I'm going to send you. And he's like, I love it.
Yeah.
And wrote it. And it's
like opening emails from Oprah, and you get a storyline, and you get a storyline. Yes, you get a storyline.
Totally.
Maybe these could become short stories.
Yeah.
For these characters, since you can't get them into the book.
That's right.
So take a moment to brag on each other. And outside of working on this book, what do you like about each other's work?
Ooh, I'll go.
Hank first.
All right. I love Deanna's depth of characters. So her books, I think the first one I read of yours was The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And I was like, oh, Ichabod. Oh, you naughty boy. But then I can't remember in what order then I read them, but like Easy Rider, I love that book. That is an awesome book. And I love the time period, and I love the characters, and I just love all of it. And the discovery. It's a road trip. Another road. You love the road trip books. Apparently. And then Wrecked is awesome. Is really good. So she has a way of just like, pulling up those emotions and really getting into the romance of it and doing an awesome job with it, and having the characters, and then the conflict is organic. It's not like fabricated, and it all blends together. She's got a really good sense of story. Love it.
Nice.
Aw, that's so sweet. I feel like, Hank, your dialogue sells your story.
Oh.
You could write a whole book on just dialogue with nothing else, and people would buy it and laugh. You're hilarious, and your dialogue is great. And I feel like our styles mesh well, because I do write more. I like to write a lot of the internal monologue and the emotion. But I'll tell you an example, and this is a semi-spoiler in book 2. But this is what I love about Hank's writing. Okay, I'm not going to tell too much of the story, but there is a scene where something really shocking happens for our character Jazz, the hairdresser. And the scene is in Jazz's point of view. You'll know what I'm talking about in a second. So the scene is in Jazz's point of view. And then Michael, our mortician, bursts through the door. And everyone's like, how did you get here? And he's like, I ran here. And that sounds like simplistic, but the emotional intensity of why Michael would run 5 blocks to the salon where Jazz works on a mere phone call just conveys so much intensity with 3 words. I ran here. And that's what I love about Hank's writing. I mean, I write the long, emotional, internal monologue, and Hank writes that same intense, emotional monologue in 3 words. I ran here.
Oh.
And I think, I mean, that's what I love about his books. But I feel like those 2 things complement each other in our writing. Like,
Absolutely.
I like to write the long drawn out emotional, and he writes that same scene in 3 words. I ran here. And that's why I love writing with him.
Cool. Aw. They're hearting each other for those people not watching the video right now. It's very cute.
Hey, Instagram.
So you mentioned 3 books in the Lacetown series are planned. Do you foresee life in the universe beyond those 3 since you're having such a good time?
Yes.
Talked about it. We've discussed it. Yeah. We've got the trilogy planned, and then we'll see what happens with it.
We have at least 2 in our head.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Beyond 3.
Yeah.
And what about separately? What's coming up next outside of the Lacetown series for you both?
You have something coming up soon, Deanna?
Well, I have one thing coming up for sure, and hopefully 2. I also write young adult fiction, just like Hank does, under his is it RG or RD?
RG.
RG Thomas. Hank has a young adult series under RG Thomas, and I have a young adult series, Katie Worth, which is very different from my Deanna Wadsworth writing. It's young adult / new adult, because my characters are 19 and there are some, I don't know, level 3 sexy moments. So you can't really people get funny about young adult, but it has sexy stuff in it.
Yeah.
But there's a strong spiritual element with the main character who was trying to kill himself because of his family sending him to like one of those creepy pray the gay away camps. Mm-hmm. And the moment he kills himself, he's saved by a young teenage Grim Reaper who decides that he wants to give him a second chance in life. And there's a sassy, foul-mouthed, because no one understands why Deanna would write a character like that. Yeah. A sassy, foul-mouthed angel who helps these boys on their journey, and that story is called The Grim Life. And book 3, the final series, the final saga in that trilogy, The Lost Souls, is coming out this fall. And I'm really, really excited about that. I mean, a lot of MM or gay romance, whatever you want to call it, authors know that young adult isn't where the sales and money are at, sadly, but this is like a really intense, I don't want to say pet project because that trivializes it, but it's really a series that means more to me than almost probably anything I've ever written.
Yeah. You've been working on these for what, like 2 years now?
Yeah, 4.
4
it
years.
took me 2 years to write book 3 because I just too emotionally invested in it. There's a lot of death and questioning of what goes on the other side, and where God sees your soul, and all these like intensely hard questions. And to make things harder on myself, I put a school shooting in book 3 because why not?
Oh my!
It's so emotionally intense that you can't write it. That comes out this fall, but I'm hoping my second book in my Pride of the Caribbean cruise series comes out, which is a merman. Yeah.
Nice.
Merman
on a cruise.
On a Caribbean cruise, So like I like to be intense or I like to be funny. I can't be.
There's no in between, right?
No.
Just either end of the spectrum.
That's right.
That's what it is. That's what's coming out for me.
Cool.
I will be working on the final book of the Critter Catcher series. Final book for now. It's tentatively titled Dread of Night. So, and I've got about 6 chapters written. I'm working on a big pivotal scene also, so I need to just like now that book 2 has been sent off for consideration, I can kind of focus on that, because I'm really bad at like jumping between projects to like my mind gets stuck in the other characters, because while I'm working on this other one, I'm like, but wait, what about? So yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
And what is
Lots of other stuff I need to work on too, but that's the big thing coming up.
I
Nice.
love the Critter Catcher books. They're so good. I manipulated Hank into giving me the last book when I was sick last summer. I was like, shouldn't you send it to me? I know that you're going to submit it for publishing in a month, but I'm really sick.
I need to beta. I'm sick. Yeah.
Yes. I did that.
And it worked too, right?
I did. I sent it. I was good.
Of course.
And it was worth it.
So what's the best way for readers to keep up with you guys online? Let's start with Hank.
Oh, I have a website. It's hankedwardsbooks.com. You can also find my young adult fiction at townofsuperstition.com.
Ooh.
And I do have those books listed on my Hank Edwards website, just to make it easier. It's and then I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. It's facebook.com Hank Edwards Books. And I really don't use Twitter. Confuses me. I get really, it's just noise. It's like people yelling at each other. And so I have a Twitter account, but I'm not out there much. But I have on Instagram, I usually post pictures of my cats. And that's Hank Edwards Books as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Deanna?
I'm on Facebook, Deanna Wadsworth, author, and Instagram, I go by Deanna Wads. I don't know why I didn't finish my last name, but I don't know. Everybody called my grandpa Wadsy, so I should have done Deanna Wadsy, but I screwed that up. But I'm on those two, a little on Twitter and a little on Pinterest, all under Deanna Wadsworth. Mostly my information, my most activity is on Instagram or my website, deannawadsworth.com. And that's
Cool.
it. And you should totally read Hank's Archie Thomas books. It's like Harry Potter, but gay with like dragons and little garden gnomes. I freaking love those books. Better write another one. After we write our book. You write our book. You got priorities.
All right.
Hey, you've got your marching orders now, Hank.
I do. I get them a lot.
He doesn't have a wife, but
It's all right.
I'll jump in that role.
All right. Well, this has been a blast. We will definitely look up to everything in the show notes that we've talked about here. And we wish you the best of success on the Lacetown Murder Mysteries.
Thanks very much, Jeff. It's been fun.
Thank you, Jeff.